I just saw Tommy driving this hearse, and I kind of ran with that, and I just let.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Sher.
Hello.
We have a very special guest here today.
Yeah.
We are interviewing him. He is Mark from The Room. He is the author of The Disaster Artist. We have Greg Sestero
Yay!
here. The biggest problem with having you on is that I feel like you've been asked every question about The Room that can possibly be asked. Is that true?
That's the amazing thing about The Room is that it always overwhelms people, and I feel like it's such a singular experience when you see The Room that either you love it and it baffles you, or you want 99 minutes of your life back.
Yeah.
Usually people their questions are really genuine, and I would feel the same way too. Like, how did this get made? Why did this get made? What were you thinking? Did you think it would be great? So because I was in that position and I got to witness it firsthand, it's always interesting to me to talk to people about their experience seeing The Room. So, there's always new questions that do pop up, but when I wrote the book, I feel like I answered a lot of it, but there's still a lot left to be said.
I imagine so. Like, I've tried to describe to people who haven't ever seen The Room what is so unique about it, about why this movie out of all the bad movies that you could possibly.
Right.
There's a ton of these. They just aren't as memorable as this is. You can't even, you don't even know where to start, because the Tommy Wiseau acting performance is very, very strange. It's something you've never seen before.
Yep.
He's writing and directing and saying these lines he wrote, and he's directing himself, and it just becomes this blender of just oddities, and you don't know where exactly to start going. You don't know how did this get made doesn't even really begin to start on what the experience is of watching The Room. I got introduced to The Room about 9 years ago. Somebody showed me a trailer, and I was like, why are we, I know there's this whole prop bad stuff up and as entertainment type of thing. I was like, I'm not going to watch this, and I ended up watching it 3 times.
True.
It was just like the movies where they say, I'm not doing this ever. I'm not doing it. And then you're in the theater the next scene. So I guess I'm going to ask questions and hope that they somewhat lead us to newer questions. How did Tommy Wiseau feel about you writing the book, The Disaster Artist?
So I got the idea to write the book in April of 2010. We were in Boston at the Coolidge Theater doing a show, and it was really the first time I went with him on the road for a live screening, because it really started to take off in 2009, 2010. So I thought to myself, like, what do you do with this experience? It's not going to get you acting work, obviously.
Right.
I tried that. But I knew there was a great story here. I knew Tommy was an amazing character, one-of-a-kind character. I knew our story was insane. And now it looked like there was an ending for it, like the movie now had an audience. So I went with him to Boston, and there was like 3 nights of sold-out shows and interviews. And it kind of came on to me like, this story could make a great movie, because I loved Ed Wood and Sunset Boulevard and movies about Hollywood. And I thought, what actor wouldn't want to play a character like Tommy? So I told him that weekend, I was like, I think what I want to do with this is I want to write a book about my experience and tell more people about who you are and where you came from. And so I started interviewing him right there, and I asked him questions. He opened up about his time living in France, and really, like, not jokey stuff. He really was serious and heartfelt. And I was like, that's what this book is. It's not poking fun at The Room or going on about what a bad movie it is. It's really about 2 guys following their dream who are very different, and it's giving a look into who Tommy really was. So that's kind of how it started. And then I got really lucky because I stayed on tour with him for about a year as I was writing the book, and I got to like be around him, and all these things came back about how he gets into restaurants and doesn't wait in line and things he would say. And so I became so obsessed with the book that I wanted every line of dialogue in that book to be something he said in that moment or has said. And I'd send myself all these crazy emails like dialogue to go here and there, and I'd go over them with my co-author, and we go back and forth, and really I became obsessed with telling the story. So I think initially he thought it was a good idea, and he supported it. And then I think, because Tommy is he's controlling and he's got a very specific way of looking at life, I think he wanted to have something kind of to do with the book creatively. And I thought, I supported you in making The Room. I didn't give you any creative ideas. I just supported you and said, dude, if that's what you want, do it. And I feel like that's kind of what I wanted with the book. It's like we both had our own vision. And I think they both kind of helped us out in our own way, even if we didn't believe in each other's project. Like, I think Tommy's come around now and appreciates the book, and I appreciate The Room as well. But, yeah, that's pretty much how it started. So he was the first person I really told and wanted, and I interviewed him, and I only wanted to put stuff in the book that were things he told me and that were things he felt comfortable sharing, because one of the great things about The Room and Tommy is the mystery. And I feel like if you give too much of that away, it's just not interesting anymore. And so I wanted to preserve a lot of that.
I totally agree, by the way. I almost don't want the mystery to ever be solved about him. I know at first when I watched it, I wanted to know everything about him, where he came from, what led him to make this and everything. But now, I don't know. I guess I've just gotten steeped down into this thing too much to be like, I don't want to know. It'll ruin it if I know too much. And I know that people have tried. I know that there's other people have written books about this movie too, right? They've tried to get as much information as they can.
Yeah, I think there's been a fan book written and some other things. But I think at this point, even if Tommy came out and just, he says New Orleans, and we've been to New Orleans, and and I think people still wouldn't believe him. I think they would hang on to what they believe, like he's a Croatian cyborg or a vampire from Pennsylvania, or, I feel like it's just, it becomes your own opinion at this point. And I think that's a big part of the fun.
Well, that's the interesting part. You mentioned his reaction to the book and your reaction to the book. The movie sounds like it translates it a little bit differently. So what was your reaction to the movie? What was Tommy's reaction to it?
To the Disaster Artist?
Yeah, the movie.
I really liked the movie. I thought, the Greg character was, I think more hopeful, more positive in the film. And I think you needed that because, you're telling a story to a universal audience that hasn't seen The Room, doesn't maybe know Hollywood. And they're like, what do we want to see a movie about a guy who knew this movie was going to be bad? Like, why was he still in it? Mm-hmm. But I think it was much more powerful to focus on the friendship and these two guys following their dream, and just, Greg kind of being that hopeful young actor that, like all of us that want to follow our dream and keep faith in it. And I thought that kind of change was smart. And I think the film was also great because a lot of people saw it who never heard of The Room and thought it was a good movie, and they didn't believe we were real. They were like, is this really based on a true story? So I thought that was effective. And I know Tommy said he approved of the book 40%, but he approves of the Disaster Artist movie 99%. And so James asked him, like, well, the movie's based on the book, like what's missing? And he's like, well, the book has French style. I don't know what exactly it was, but I think we both loved the movie. There was a lot of love put into it. The cast was great. Just the whole experience of the way that film was put together, and everybody in it just wanted to tell the story. And it was really, it was just an amazing experience across the board.
That's what I wanted to ask, was that how involved you got to be? Did you get to be on set? Did they use you as a resource? Did they just sort of like make a deal with you and then say, we don't want to talk to you anymore? Like, how much input did you get to have?
Well, the biggest thing was finding people that get the story. And I think that I could sense that right away. So for me, I really just wanted to be there if they needed anything, it's their film. I was really excited to see what they would do with it. And so I was pretty much there if they ever needed anything, and they were really cool. I mean, I got to go to the set quite a bit. I got to pull out all the old pictures, and I got to work with the production designer,
Awesome.
Chris Spellman, who did This Is the End and a bunch of movies for them. He was just super cool. They recreated what my bedroom looked like and the car I was driving, and they just everything was so much fun.
Awesome.
I got to go to the set when Bryan Cranston was there and try to ask him questions about Breaking Bad and not look like too much of a stalker.
Awesome.
And I mean, they were really great.
That's awesome.
I take it that you like Dave Franco's portrayal of you. Then, if you liked also the changes that they made to you in the movie, I guess as well. Did you enjoy his performance?
Yeah, I mean, we're similar in a lot of ways. He's from Northern California. We're both Warriors fans. We both kind of got into weird movies early on, starting out. He was in a movie called Bad Meat or something like that. And we spent time talking about those early days of trying to be an actor. And I remember he was asking me, like, is there at any point did you think The Room had a chance? And because I think for Dave, he was trying to figure out, like, Tommy's such an overwhelming character. He's like, what's Greg's motivation? What's his thing for staying there? And so he was trying to figure out, was it because I thought it would be good? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But you can use that if you need it. And so I think that, like I said, I think they did a good job building it on the friendship. But I thought Dave was great. He had never seen The Room before James called him up and said, I want to make a movie about this book based on this movie. Check it out. And Dave said he was in his hotel room and started watching it. And he's like, oh man, I think James is off on this one. But Dave ended up coming around and saying he's seen The Room more than any other film at this point. So
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think The Room kind of won everybody over.
Yeah. I think he said something in the commentary for The Disaster Artist that he was going around to all the screenings, and I was like, I can't imagine how many screenings he must have gone to for research on this film. It had to have been a lot. And I don't doubt that at all. I bet he watched it 100 times.
Wow.
But I don't know the actual number, but I'm assuming it's something like that.
Yeah. What was the tipping point? I don't want to derail the conversation too much, but this is very interesting to me. Did you see a tipping point from, what was it, 2002 that it debuted?
2003.
2003 to when it became cult status. So you said, like, what, 7, 8, 9 years later on? What was the impetus for it? Or do you even know?
So the premiere, I saw something at the premiere. Well, really, I saw something in this when I first showed my family and friends, like the dailies and Rough Cut, months before The Room ever premiered. And they were laughing through the whole thing. Like, they couldn't get enough of it. They thought it was just insane. So I knew there was humor there. And then at the premiere, I walked out about 5 minutes in because I knew that the sex scenes were coming, and I don't know, I felt kind of claustrophobic.
Oh, yeah, I would
But
too.
I peeked back in about halfway through, and it was getting laughs in all these crazy places when the doorbell would ring. And so there was, I saw, it was almost like it was this perfect comedy in a way, and I thought that was going to be it, really, because it was, this drama. And so Tommy kind of rolled with it, and these film students discovered it. And these two guys, Michael Rousselet, who started 5 Second Films, he walked by the marquees. They would show once a month at the Laemmle Sunset 5. And then it was around 2008, I got a message from a reporter at Entertainment Weekly named Clark Collis. He had just seen the film in LA, and he thought it was one of the craziest movie experiences he's ever had, and he wanted to write about it. So he interviewed me, and I didn't really know what to say. I didn't know what this was going to be about. And then a few months later, there was a 6-page article in Entertainment Weekly that, went over the whole thing, how long it's been playing, that they're celebrity fans. And it just kind of blew it up. And then from that point on, it started playing in London. In London as well, in LA, New York, and it was selling out every month. And it just kind of caught on at that point. So I think it was really the cult being kept alive by the film students, the creatives living in LA, and just kind of word of mouth. It was one of those movies that I don't know if it'll ever happen again in the same way, because it was really kept alive by people who just loved this movie and had really nothing in it. Like, there was no publicist or studio. It was just a group of people that liked this movie so much that would talk about it. And it kept spreading.
Wow.
It's got to feel pretty cool to be involved with something like that, man. I would think.
Well, that's what was so great about the movie version of The Disaster Artist, is getting people like Kevin Smith and like Adam Scott and all those guys at the beginning saying just what you said, Greg, where it's like, this is something that was lightning captured in a bottle that maybe will never happen again, that everybody wants, but it's almost impossible to attain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give credit to, to Tommy for several reasons, because, we were actors living in LA at the time, and nobody wanted anything to do with him, really. He'd go to these classes. He was the outcast. He was laughed at. No agent, he'd send his headshots in, and I'd be like, Tommy,
Yeah.
you're not going to get cast as Tom Cruise, man. But he still kept going and thought, hey, I have something to tell, and I know I can be powerful as an actor. And he went and put everything he had on the line to make something, and none of us really believed it'd go anywhere. I mean, anybody with common sense would think there's no stars in this movie, there's no studio, the story is what it is, he just kept persevering, and I think he's really kind of the engine behind the film. When you watch him come on screen, you immediately ask, who is that and what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And so I saw that early on in the acting class, and I really believe that in the right role, he could deliver an interesting performance and be charismatic and intriguing. And I just think in the room, it became something so insane because he's playing a leading man banker.
Yeah.
And normally you'd never see that unless obviously he had creative control, he had the money to back it. And so it's a movie we should have never really gotten because nobody would ever back it. And so we were treated to something so unique that, 16 years later, almost, we still can't believe happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about this. Maybe never. I mean, it's going to have a very unique set of circumstances like The Room has. And if it's not for Tommy Wiseau being a part of like every single part of this movie, that movie is nothing like what we know it as and everything. I think Kristen Bell at the beginning of The Disaster Artist says if you had the 5 best directors try to direct this, it would be in a completely different world. and it's absolutely correct. You've seen other movies try. Well, they haven't tried, but there's other movies that they've tried to get this sort of cult status, like Birdemic, which I don't think Birdemic has even gotten close to this. Like our local Belcourt plays The Room as an annual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's a biannual thing at this point. Birdemic played one time as far as I know, and it doesn't have that same kind of thing. It's bad in a very unique way, but it doesn't have that same thing that brings you back over and over and over again. Whereas The Room has so many elements to it that it's just a curiosity. I've always argued that you can never make these movies on purpose, by the way, too. You can't make a movie. I'm going to make a movie like The Room and not have at least some sort of like self-awareness to it and where you're not at least just joking about your subject. This is something that he took on very seriously, right? I mean, he was very serious about this.
Yeah, that's really, I think, the secret with any great film or bad film is you need to have a group of people that are really passionate, that are giving everything they have to make the greatest film that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a lot of ways, The Room for Tommy was a cry out for help. I mean, when you're a struggling actor in LA and you're just getting told no all the time, I mean, you wonder, like, do I have anything to offer? And I think he was at a point where he was just screaming out like, hey, I have something, like, this is my life. He even said at the premiere. And so, I think everyone in the room was doing the best they could with the material. Everyone starting out was thinking, I mean, this movie was shot on 35 millimeter film, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
And so back then it was a big thing. And so we figured, hey, you get something for your reel. It's something to show, to move up as an actor. So everybody was doing their best in the situation. I think that also adds something, because as soon as you have people that are self-aware and they think they're making something funny or cheesy. It's not watchable. And I think The Room has so much charm also because it was made by a pretty professional crew.
Mm-hmm.
It's shot really, really nicely.
we were shooting at Burns and Sawyer, this great film company, and so they got all these guys that know how to make a decent film, and so I think The Room is watchable. I mean, even though it's out of focus a few times. I mean, the green screen.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
No comment. But I think it's a watchable movie, and I think that helps add to it as well.
Yeah. You were talking about getting Tommy Wiseau in the right role and everything. I kind of think this best friends thing might be that kind of role.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because you have put him, I mean, you guys have put him in another kind of, this time it's kind of a role though that is already weird. It's already a weird role. He plays a guy who dresses up dead people with masks to make them look good or whatever. And all this time he's been collecting gold teeth. And Best Friends, both these volumes are very pulpy.
Yeah.
There's a pulp aspect to them where you're like, wow, what a strange like story this is. This guy's been collecting gold teeth and we don't know why. And then like this homeless guy, comes in and is like, hey, we can sell these teeth on the sly. And it's like there's something, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there are some moments in these Best Friends movies that are hilarious to me because they're so straightforward, but the stuff that's going on screen is absolutely insane. They have a broker selling gold teeth in this movie. Like this is the most natural thing in the world. This is this is selling cocaine in a back alley or something. So tell me the process, because you wrote the scripts for these, right?
So I wrote the script in like 4 days.
Okay.
I had an edible late one night, and I started gathering all these weird experiences that I've had with Tommy and picturing this alternate universe of us living in a different Los Angeles that has nothing really to do with acting. And I just saw Tommy driving this hearse, and I kind of ran with that, and I just let Gia take me to the next. And it was just absolutely insane. I mean, the story was coming together, and I could see it. I could see the dialogue. I could see what Tommy was wearing. And then you talk about the teeth thing. So my brother's a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And so legit people sell gold teeth. There's a thing called dental gold, because gold now was worth like $1,300 an ounce.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a good amount of money to be made. And so he had this bag of gold teeth lying around, and so we actually used real teeth in the film.
Oh my!
And so I just put it together, and I just rolled with it. So in 4 days, I wrote this script, and I pitched it to Tommy, and I thought for sure he was going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, we can try to make a movie, but I have one request. And the request is, what if you and I are same height in the movie? And so I didn't know like how that worked in, but I'm like, if that's what you want, Tommy, we'll do whatever you want, we'll do it. And so we got these platform heels made for him, and we went out and started shooting the movie. And I'd rehearse with him at night because from the Disaster Artist, I know. When I was working on his dialogue, I can think like him at this point. And so a lot of the dialogue I wrote, things he would say or how that I felt like would be interesting to his character. And we rehearsed, and kind of he'd show up, and we, I thought he was really good in these movies. I thought, we didn't want to try to poke fun or make a kind of a jokey character or a caricature of of the room. We just wanted him to be Tommy and let him shine in the best way that he could. And so we really took it seriously. And I think, like you were saying, some of the situations are so ridiculous, but we played them as straight as we could. Like, yes. I never thought for a second, let's try to be in on the joke here. I was like, we're telling the story and we're going for it. And so that's See, that's what was kind of fun for me, is that when I saw the movie with an audience for the first time, they would laugh at these random parts that I had no idea had any humor in them.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really interesting, because we played it straight pretty much the whole time and tried to take it as seriously as possible. So it's funny when you say that, you could tell like we're legitimately going for it, but if you like pull back, the situations are just so ridiculous.
Well, like in the best parody movies, like Airplane or whatever. And I know you're not going for an Airplane type movie or anything, but
that would be a good idea.
yeah. You know, like those, there's not, and it's because you are playing it so straight laced. There's no winking. There's no like look up into the sky. There's no like,
There's reverence.
yeah,
Right. For the performance.
absolutely. And so if you take some of these situations, some of the dialogue at face value, it becomes funny, because you're just like, do they realize how insane that just sounded? It doesn't seem like they do. And so I took a great amount of amusement out of it. And you're right about, I think Tommy Wiseau is actually pretty good in this, just because I think this time, relieved of the burden of having to direct the film himself and not writing his own, not having to say his own dialogue and everything, he can just concentrate on just that. And yes, he still has that weird affectation, but it's perfect for that role. We talk about this with Keanu Reeves all the time.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, you put him in the right thing. Keanu Reeves is amazing. You put him in something that just doesn't,
Shakespeare.
Yeah, you put him in Shakespeare, it doesn't work at all. But yeah, I was interested. The volume 1. I after volume 1, I was like, you could really go a lot of places with these characters. Like this could just get into some weirder and weirder territory. And to great credit, volume 2 feels like a completely different movie. It feels like the second episode of a long TV show. Huh. And I really liked how volume 2 went along too. It's just as insane and ridiculous, but it's got that, like I said, it's got that pulp feel to you. There's a little grunge to it, and I really like that. So,
Yeah, what I really liked about volume 2 is I got to work with another buddy of mine who plays Uncle Rick.
Oh yeah.
And so we met like 2004 modeling in Japan together. We were shooting these like really weird catalog uniforms. And so Rick used to be a soap star back in the 80s, and I used to watch him as a kid on this soap called Santa Barbara.
Oh yeah.
So we became friends, and then lost touch. And then when I was writing the script, I thought of him, and I wrote this part based on him. Like, his name is Rick Edwards. I just called him Uncle Rick and wrote the whole part. And I spent like a few months trying to track him down, and I finally got a hold of him. And sure enough, he had moved from LA to Tucson, was working construction.
Wow.
And driving a white pickup truck, and it was exactly the story that I wrote in the script for him.
Wow.
I think he thought I was like some weird stalker at first. And I'm like, dude, I wrote this part for you. But yeah, he came on, and I thought he was great. People have really responded well to him. So I got really lucky to meet a character like Tommy, and then all of a sudden now be able to work with Rick, who people are saying in some ways kind of steals the craziness in volume 2.
Yeah.
But both movies were really fun to make. I think it was fun for me all these years later to try to go make something not affiliated with The Room and really try to take the audience in a different direction and give them something fresh. I realized how rewarding that was, because I know, The Room is great, and it's amazing with how the fans have embraced it and all the cool things that have come from it. But I think at the end of the day, like, if you love movies and want to make films, there's no greater reward than going out and telling stories.
When you did volume 1, I'm assuming that you knew a volume 2 was coming, because volume 1 is right there in the title. But were you able to make volume 2 because of a success of volume 1? I don't know how the business side of these movies work, because I only saw it on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it got any kind of theatrical release. Is that sort of the model for trying to get the movie seen, is to try to get it on a streaming service?
So I wrote it as one film, and we made it as one film.
Oh, okay.
And then we got into the editing room, and they're like, dude, I don't know. These are two crazy stories that are so different that I feel like if we make them one movie, you're going to lose what's fun about each one. and we were doing like a premiere in London for the movie, and we just didn't have time to get, the movie all, figured out. And so we showed part one and said, how does the audience is going to respond? And they really, really flipped for it. So we showed it in theaters, most of last year. It had a premiere with Fathom Events last April.
Mm-hmm.
And then volume 2 was in June, I believe. And then it got released, in January on Blu-ray and digital as well. So it got to play in theaters around the world, and because I think these movies are also fun to see with an audience. There's no spoons that are thrown. Yeah,
right. No kidding.
But I think it's a fun film to come see with your friends. It's got the craziness, and so and then it's also great now that people can watch it digitally. But we were lucky because of The Room and the Disaster Artist and all that. We were able to release it theatrically as well.
That's awesome. I just kind of wondered how those went about, because I'm seeing a lot of these. There's a lot of these sort of DIY type movies being made,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering what the ultimate goal is. It feels like it's really just to be seen most of the time. You just want people to see your work. There doesn't seem to be like a real big financial aspect to it, but maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, cinema was born, with a crowd and being able to see it in a movie theater. I think that's still number one. But, for some projects and some movies, it doesn't make much sense. It's better to just put it out there on streaming and have people be able to see it. Because, yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, the goal is that people experience your film and hopefully get something from it. And, so it just depends now whether there's an audience that'll go to the theater for it, or if it's better for them to just binge it at home. So I think each project has to figure that out and see what the audience wants.
Mm-hmm.
What about writing? Do you want to write any more books? Do you have any more stories you want to tell in print?
Yeah, I've been writing. The next thing I want to do is make a horror film.
Oh, nice.
And so I've been writing that script, and it's been a lot of fun. It hasn't come together in 4 days, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to find that edible again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cult movie. It's a movie about a cult that lives in the desert. That's what I'm working on right now, and it's been a lot of fun to write something new. I think this will be a fun step. It'll be something really different, and horror's been my favorite genre for a while. I really liked Hereditary and It Follows and Get Out. So I'm gonna try to do something really, really different and see where that goes.
Do you want to act in that project as well, or are you just kind of writing it now and you'll see where it goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really, what stood out to me the most about making Best Friends was the writing and the producing part. I really enjoyed. Because it was fun to write these characters, to think of these places and then bring them to life. And in some ways I enjoyed that more than acting, because I realized how rewarding that was to see other actors come in and play their characters and do their scenes and see where the story goes. So, I definitely obviously love acting, but I don't have to, put myself in every film. But if there's a role that I'm intrigued by, I mean, I would love to try to do something, like I said, really different, especially as an actor, and just try something I've never done before. I think that would be fun.
Well, I assume if you're living in L.A., you're in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can see me in the back window, but it might be a little too tinted. But I'm excited for that movie, actually. It's probably my most anticipated movie of this year.
For sure. You're currently working on a movie called Big Shark. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, that was so Tommy had an idea to do a shark film, and he put together a teaser, and I was trying to push him to say, like, hey, if you're going to make a shark movie, think Shape of Water, but with a shark. He's like, I'm sorry, but we on different page.
He wants to make it big.
Yeah, I was thinking, that was one of the ideas I had. Is like, if you're gonna go, the shark thing has been done with quite a few times now. So I was thinking my original take on the whole shark genre would be to to do it as a Shape of Water type. But I don't know. Maybe that's the edibles talking.
Yeah, could be. Is that supposed to come out this year sometime?
I don't know. I think he's he's still forming it all. So
okay. Well, there's some other interesting credits on your IMDb page, and just wondered if you had any stories about them. But I see Gattaca on there, a movie that I really love. Accepted, which is a funny movie.
Yep.
Ed TV, and what's the other one?
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams, yeah. Anything that you took out of those experiences that you'd like to share?
yeah, I think Patch Adams was probably the most memorable because it's I think the only one that I'm in that I made the cut.
Oh yeah.
But no, I got to hang out with Robin Williams that day, and it taught me a lot about how to treat people and fans, and he was just really cool and gracious. And I mean, I was literally an extra background to the family. Yeah, in the film, his girlfriend had passed away, and I was playing the brother, or even just, and so he explained to me the whole scene and treated me like I was one of them. And I remember I never forgot that. And he was cracking jokes, and, just kind of getting to spend the day around Robin Williams was unforgettable. And of course I got to piss off Philip Seymour Hoffman at the same time, who I thought was an extra as well.
Oh yeah. I can see. Yeah.
I hadn't seen Big Lebowski or Boogie Nights at the time.
That's
and
awesome.
And I just went up to him and was like, so what extra role are you playing? And he just looked at me and just looked away and was like, get the hell away from me. And it was so strong that when I later did see Boogie Nights, I was like, that's the extra from Patch Adams. And so I think that day was probably the one that taught me the most. And Accepted was bizarre. Connection to that actually was produced by the same guy who did Patch Adams, Tom Shadyac.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was on the set of Accepted several years later in LA, Tom Shadyac, who directed Patch Adams, was there, and I went up to him and he's like, "Oh, you're here now." It was kind of a funny connection.
That
and
is funny.
Yeah.
another one that I really enjoyed making, a film called Dude Bro Party Massacre 3.
Oh, I've heard of this. I haven't seen it though.
It's actually a really fun horror comedy, and it's directed by Michael Rousselet. He's one of the directors who was the very first Room fan, who was the one who started the cult. And so we made this movie a few years ago. It's actually a really fun movie. I definitely recommend it. They obviously, he has a great sense of humor if he got The Room, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So Dude Bro Party Massacre 3 is one I definitely recommend for.
Awesome.
I'm definitely going to watch that. I've heard of this movie a couple of times, and it's even, I think it's even got the classic 80s cover art on it too.
Yes, it does. It's an exploding head.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. And Patton Oswalt's in it as well. Andrew WK, and it's a fun time.
That's awesome.
Nice.
It's going on the list.
Yeah. I guess some random thoughts that occurred to me, that there does seem to be some callbacks to The Room in those Best Friends movies, and maybe they were unintentional, but obviously the title itself is something that's very well known from The Room. He's
With
my
best
best
friends.
friend, yeah, and all that. So that's one of the things. There's even a copy of The Room sitting on your girlfriend's like movie collection or whatever. They threw that in there. I was like, yep, I noticed that.
You know what? That was a total accident.
Oh, really?
Really?
We just needed movies to fill, and The Room ended up being there, and I didn't even realize it was in there until someone pointed it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And there's even a spot where you're sitting on one of those circular staircases. And I just thought, are these little visual like clues that like I even came up with I came up with an elaborate story that these two movies connected to The Room, and somehow this is how they became best friends. They've changed their name after selling all the gold teeth and all that, and that so I came up with that elaborate thing, and I was like, no, that can't be right, damn it.
So The Room is part 3.
Yeah, Room's part 3. Oh, I mean, who
Yeah,
knows?
it could totally work that way. They have become friends. They go to junior college. Johnny he throws away the mortician career, becomes a banker. It all could work.
Yeah.
No, but none of those references in Best Friends were intentional. They just kind of worked their way in. Like, we were at this location that had a spiral staircase. We were like, hey, there's no connection. We're not trying to do the room. And just randomly these things would find their way in. And we're like, if it's organic enough and it doesn't take away with us trying to tell a new story, then why not? And I'm glad we did, because I think it gives some comfort to fans that have, coming to see the room for so many years. I think it's, I don't think it detracts from it. I think it adds some humor.
No, I think it's great. There's even a scene where you throw a basketball. You're throwing basketball back and forth too. So I was like, there's a little homage to the football scene, I guess. But
Greg, how did you hear of us? How did you hook up with us?
A friend of mine who works with Fathom Events actually said you guys are great.
Okay.
Wow, now we're going to
Best Friends is coming out, and I thought, hey, I'm sure the room blew your mind. I thought it'd be fun to see what you guys thought of.
We have a CinemaSins video for the room.
Yeah, it might be the dirtiest one we've ever done.
It's pretty dirty.
I think it's dirty. I don't think we'd make it the way it's made, the way we made it back then. But yeah, it's one of our sicker videos, I think.
And it has nearly 10 million views now.
Really?
Wow, that's awesome.
That's crazy.
Well, do you have anything you would like to tell our fans, where they might be able to find you on social media, or anything to keep an eye out over the next year that you're working on that we haven't touched on yet? We like to give everybody we have on as a guest a chance to pimp the shit.
Yeah, sure. I'm just at Greg Sestero on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can get Best Friends Volume 1 and 2 now on Blu-ray. And it's on streaming services like Prime and iTunes and all that worldwide. And just look out for the horror film. That's the next installment. So,
awesome.
Yeah, when you check out Best Friends, like you guys obviously had the right attitude, keep an open mind, and try to look past the room and just try to enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, fun experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely keep an open mind when you watch it, because it's another insane story.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely go watch those two.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Greg. I'm sorry I'm off of camera here, but I'm the disembodied voice. Really appreciate you talking with us. We are big fans of what you're doing, and this was super fun.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you being so flexible, too. I know we had to reschedule some things here and there a couple times, and you've just been super awesome about it. So thanks for coming on.
No worries at all. Yeah, thank you guys a lot for having me on, and, of course, all the support you've shown these films. And, hopefully I continue to give you guys some good entertainment.
That'd be great. Looking forward to the horror movie.
You ever get down to Nashville to do are you still going to any of these screenings, the room stuff?
I've been doing some Best Friends live events. I love the Belcourt. I was there a few years ago.
Awesome.
But if I shoot down there, I'll definitely let you guys know.
Please
That'd
do.
be great.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys.
Anyway, thanks to Greg Sestero for coming in.
Yeah.
That was awesome of him, and I thought that was a good interview. And
Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
yeah, I can't wait to see the other stuff that he does. So we've got some other stuff that we want to talk about. Do we want to do some recommends and warns?
Yes, I can't wait for these.
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for Best Movie Ever Made.
I have so
Okay.
many. I have already suggested we do a bonus podcast for Patreon members just of record warrants and records and warrants.
Recca.
I got so many. I've been watching movies, yo. Nice. People say I don't watch movies. I just don't watch many in theaters. I watch movies like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I got a big list.
What you got?
Decided. I don't want to go first.
I think you should go first.
All right, well, then I got to pull it up, goddammit. I was not prepared for this. What do you think I do? Prepare?
No.
How very honest of you. All right, I would like to talk first and foremost about a movie called Lady Macbeth.
Okay.
Ah.
Barrett has talked about this movie before.
This very movie?
Yes. Is this the one with the lady has like an arranged marriage to a guy that just like fops
Yes.
to her.
You talked about this movie on this podcast?
I have.
How long ago?
Probably 6 months ago or something like that.
This is as Recca-worn as a movie has ever been for me.
I think I agree with you.
It stars the gal who's in this Fighting with My Family movie about the wrestler right now.
Is that her?
Florence Pugh?
Yeah, it's Florence Pugh.
She is in an arranged marriage. It's called Lady Macbeth. So I'm actually flipping to this thinking it's made in like 2016 or so, recently. I'm thinking I'm going to see Lady Macbeth. Like somebody took the character Macbeth's wife and made a movie out of her. I flip here and now we're in like colonial England.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, this is not what I expected, but the title should pretty much tell you what to expect. At any point in this movie that you think, okay, she's evil, but she's not actually gonna, she does. She's in this arranged marriage. She lives with her father-in-law, who is mean and keeps barking at her to do her wifely duties.
Yeah, because her guy is like off to fucking trade agreements or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
and he's a drunk. And when she does wait up for him, he comes upstairs, says, take off your dress, face the wall, and then he just jerks off.
Yeah.
He doesn't even want to do it with her.
Yeah.
Right? So then they go off to some kind of business thing. There's some kind of important trade, warehouse.
Business, talking.
Yes. They're gone. She's alone now with the servants. She starts fucking one of them. Now, this is where the movie got, like the very first time they do it, there's like a flash of nudity, her nudity. But this movie doesn't give a shit about nudity. Like, we see them having sex several times, but I think that's the only flash of nudity I remember in the whole movie. It's rated R. But it's not, the sex is not about nudity.
Yes, correct.
It's about other things. I don't know if do we want to avoid spoiling this movie?
No, spoil the fuck out of it.
She smothers a little kid.
Yeah.
Like, basically.
Among other things.
Like, basically, her father-in-law comes home and he's found out about her affair. She poisons him.
Yep.
Buries him out. And actually makes the boyfriend bury him out in the woods. Husband comes home. He's heard about the affair. She kills him. She bludgeons him to death.
Yep.
With the boyfriend. This woman shows up out of nowhere. This black lady with a little boy that says, well, what you didn't know was that your husband fucked my daughter and had this baby. And he actually did the decent thing and signed a piece of paper that said he would make this child his ward. So your responsibility now. And that lady and the child come to live with her. She smothers the baby. She smothers a little kid.
Why am I laughing about it?
I don't know.
It was so...
It's very inappropriate.
It is, but like
I have not stopped thinking about this movie, and that's where the Recca comes in.
Yeah.
Is that it crept up into my brain and it has stayed there.
Well, that's the point where you're like, because she even falters right before this. She's like, well, she'd have second thoughts, like somebody goes off to a waterfall. I'm like, they're not going to do this. Motherfucker smothers a baby.
And then, like, the doctor comes, doesn't buy the story. She's about to get busted. Secret boyfriend lover returns. He feels guilty. He confesses. And she goes, well, I didn't do any of that with him. He did all that. And because she's white and he's black, they believe her.
Yep.
End. Roll credits.
Finn.
Like the devil's wife.
Yeah.
Like, there are 5 legit points in this movie where you're like, okay, she's evil, but she's not actually gonna... Yeah, she did.
She fucking throws that guy under the bus.
And that smothering of the child scene takes about 17 minutes.
It takes forever because she slowly walks
And his
over.
legs are, like, jerking, and he's, like, making grunt noises. God, this movie stayed with me, but I can't fully recommend you watch it.
No.
But there's something about it. There's something about it.
She is terrific.
She's great. She's great.
She is gorgeous. She's regal. You can tell that she... I say she's regal. She's not playing royalty in the movie. You can tell that she doesn't want to be composed. She doesn't want to be in this situation, but it's the only way out for her family or whatever. So she conveys a lot of different emotion, and she's magnetic. So I think that's probably why.
But she's cold. Like...
Yeah.
When she poisons the father-in-law, she and he are eating breakfast, and their servant is sitting there eating with them, and you don't know anything has happened. Dude gets up and goes into the bedroom next door and closes the door, and she stands up calmly, drags a chair all the way around the table across the kitchen, and props the chair up against the door to keep him from getting out of that room, and then goes back and sits back down and keeps eating her breakfast while he starts making poison noises.
Talking to
and the servant is like, oh, what's just happened here? She's now realizing I just witnessed a murder. Anyway, very compelling stuff.
It is.
It stayed in my brain. I wanted to talk about it, but I
weird.
can't. I don't want you hating me if you watch it and you're like, what the fuck did I just watch?
I think that's important that we spoiled the baby thing.
I think really is, because that's traumatic.
It came on, I don't know, it may have came on like a day or so after you talked about it. And so I started watching a little bit, but it was midway through. So I was like, I'll wait for another time.
It's also, not to interrupt, but like, you're telling all like the compelling shit, but there are long stretches in this movie where nothing fucking happens.
Yeah, there are.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't blame you for turning it off.
Yeah, I was like, I'll go ahead and watch Interstellar.
Good call.
I most of the movies that I have seen in the past month or so were in preparation for the 2018 thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't seen very many just on my own. We've already talked with Greg Sestero about Best Friends with the R in parentheses. But I recommend those in exactly the spirit that I say. These aren't movies that are just like, gotta go see these.
Right.
These are, have an open mind, watch it and enjoy it for what they are. There is one movie that I've seen though, and I'm trying to think if this is there. I may have to have an ambivalent now.
Ooh. Ooh.
Because I see so many movies that are neither recommend nor warn nor in between. And ambivalent.
That's going on a t-shirt.
I saw a movie on Mubi called Uncle Kent 2.
Okay, who did this?
This wasn't Joe Swanberg, but Swanberg was part of it.
Right, yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
I believe his name is Todd Rohal.
Yeah.
Who directed it. The guy who's in it wrote the script, and the first there is another Uncle Kent, and Joe Swanberg did do that movie. I haven't seen that one.
There is an Uncle Kent.
There is
one?
another Uncle Kent that Joe Swanberg did, and this guy wrote. And you don't have to have seen the first Uncle Kent. Maybe there's some things about Uncle Kent 2 that you sort of there's maybe stuff for the fans of that first movie. But Uncle Kent 2 is meta because the writer is pitching Joe Swanberg and Uncle Kent 2 and saying, I really want to do this. And the whole movie goes through like you don't know how much of this is dream or vision or a lot of that type of stuff's going on. He goes to San Diego Comic-Con and he runs into like this one woman, and like the woman like just unexpectedly like really wants to hang out with him and like, you know, hey, what are you doing after? Because she's like she's like a famous person signing stuff in a booth, and you're like, how do they know each other again? And then like the next thing they're talking, and she seems really into him, and they have sex, and then it's like. And then you don't know if that actually happened or not. Oh. And so like the whole thing is him, I guess, trying to come up with a story for Uncle Kent 2. And much like adaptation, we've seen, you know, stuff like that. It's the writer is inserted himself into this, you know, this script and everything. And so a lot of it is very dreamlike, and there's a point where people start disappearing because of the singularity, saying that we're all in a simulation and everything. It's like, well, you know, it's only a matter of time before we all create the simulation or whatever. And you know, whatever that thing, I think that Elon Musk is always talking about, where, if we can come up with a simulation, the idea that we're probably in a simulation becomes that much greater. And so like, there's points where like people start, you know, go like convulsing, very digital effect, like weird digital effect, like convulsing and then disappearing. And then he has to figure out what's going on. And it's just it's one of those movies that you're like, yeah, there's some amusing things in that.
Interesting.
And some things that I can't possibly recommend anybody to go watch. And I can't warn because it's really just, it's not bad enough to warn. To some people it might be bad enough to warn, but to some people it might be good enough to recommend. And for me, I'm right down the middle.
Wow.
That's why I say ambivalent, because I'm just kind of, I'm like, yeah, that's a movie that exists. And that's all I can really say about that.
Along those lines, I just read that Ryan Reynolds is making a movie where he realizes, like, the inciting incident of the film is going to be him realizing he's an NPC character in an open world Grand Theft Auto style game. He's a non-playable character. He basically realizes he's in a simulation. Might play with some of those ideas.
Yeah.
I like that idea. They explored that a little bit in Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, you know?
A little bit.
And I think that's something that's ripe for, exploration, whether it's in science fiction, whether it's in comedy or something like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, there's more parts in there where he's like he does actually write on some sort of cartoon, and so we see clips of the cartoon. It's called Cat Agent. And it's got that very kind of it's not Dr. Katz like animation style, but more like dialogue style, I would say, where there's a lot of that type of things that are in it. So he writes that. So there's a point in the Comic-Con where he runs into like a super fan who's dressed up in this like cat agent outfit, and then it's another girl he bangs in the movie, and you're just like, damn, dude. But yeah, like there's a point where she actually goes up to him and says something like, I'm a figment of your imagination, or I'm I don't know, some sort of thing of your reality or something like that. And he just like, oh, okay, well, it's good to see you, bro. And like, so it's very stream of consciousness that way. But, yeah, one of those type of movies. Don't know what to really, it's a movie I saw.
Yeah. I think
it's a movie I saw.
Nice. I'm going to recommend the 30th time that I watched the, Wanderlust outtakes of Paul Rudd talking about his dick.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, but that I have seen that about 30 times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to get all up in your vag. No, what I want to recommend is a brand new movie, I think a couple weeks old, on Netflix called Polar.
Oh.
Have you seen it yet?
Well, no, but interestingly, Mads Mikkelsen has been in a movie called Polar and a movie called Arctic in the span of like 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And they're completely different styles of film. This is supposed to be like a John Wick, right?
This is John Wick if they pushed it even further.
Okay.
This movie is absolutely bonkers. It's not a full-throated recommend, because it ain't perfect, but this movie is fucking fun as hell.
Okay.
Now, okay, I really liked the first John Wick. I think we all really liked the first John Wick, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like you with this last movie. I was kind of ambivalent about John Wick 2.
Mm-hmm.
We all love the Raid movies and stuff like that. This is all of that combined, plus some graphic flourishes. I'm going to compare this movie to Suicide Squad for a very brief moment, and then I'm going to run away. Like all the things that the character introductions and stuff like that on Suicide Squad that made it look like it was a completely different movie.
Yes.
Some of that is on here, but it's done in a much, much better way. It's about a group of assassins that when you get to 50 years old, you retire, and it's like just a regular job. They've been matching your retirement that you've been putting in. And at 50, because you're getting old and slow, they force you to retire and you get a pension. And if you're really good at what you do, like Mads Mikkelsen's character, who is the Black Kaiser, who he is, and he's turning 50, he gets like $8 million. And they decide they don't want to pay that anymore. So they are taking out all of their older agents. They're dying, or they're killing them before they turn 50 so that they don't have to pay that thing out. It's kind of like a realistic base to this story.
It sounds loopery.
I was going to say,
yeah,
like
a little
Looper.
bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first scene is shown that this happens to Johnny Knoxville, who is, I guess, probably approaching 50.
I thought you were going to say Johnny Knoxville, who I guess is still around.
Yeah. Well, I had thought about that too. So yeah, so the deal is that they want to do this same thing to Mads Mikkelsen's character, and Mads Mikkelsen, much like John Wick, is a badass, and he is unkillable and stuff like that. But the way that they go about telling the story of him trying to stay alive while all these assassins are coming after him is just fucking bonkers. I thought we had seen like the pinnacle of like violentness, acceptable violentness, when like John Wick is shooting people through a dude's skull, you know, and that kind of thing. This movie like takes it up like several notches. Now, I'm not a big fan of gratuitous violence or anything like that, but it works because it's so hyper stylized. It works perfectly on this. This is a huge recommend.
Wow.
It's so much fun.
Wow.
It is. Yeah, I would compare it, not nearly as good as The Raid, both of the Raids, but I would put it as better than John Wick.
Well, I think I'm public on the record as thinking John Wick was great, but not the deity of a movie that society has made it. You're going to offend some people with that polar over John Wick.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like it. I like your enthusiasm, and that's what sells me. At least when friends recommend or warn a movie, it's the enthusiasm.
Yeah,
right?
This movie goes to places, both in the. By the way, it's got a very good story that has like some narrative twists to it. It's not just a straightforward revenge. You killed my dog. You're castrated, and I'm going to go after you. That kind of bullshit. It's actually has like a reason for what he does. He ends up but becoming friends with Vanessa Hudgens, who's real homely in this movie. And their relationship is very nice. It has one of the most bonkers sex scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. Oh, it's all out there, man. It is all out there. And it's hilarious. It comes out of nowhere, and it had me rolling. It was
this is on
awesome.
Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
The Mads Mikkelsen film Arctic, by the way, is a survival drama directed by YouTube's Mystery Guitar Man.
Oh, really?
Who has turned from YouTube into a career making films. I only know this because when Arctic first released, he did an AMA on Reddit, and I saw his username said Mystery Guitar Man, and I was like, the fuck? And I started digging deeper, and he makes movies now, and it's gotten great reviews too. So
you haven't seen Arctic yet?
I haven't seen Arctic yet, but I think that had a theatrical release. I don't think that's on a streaming service right now.
Joe Penna is the guy's
his
name.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mystery Guitar Man.
Yeah, sort of the early days of YouTube stardom. He was one of the top ones there for a while.
Yep.
He made some great videos too.
Yep, he sure did.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm actually going to check that out too. I like Mads Mikkelsen.
He's great.
Yeah, he's great in Casino Royale. It was funny. My wife came in and she was like, I know that guy from something. I'm like, well, we never really watched Hannibal. I understand he's really good in that. But he was great in Casino Royale. I don't really remember much of what else he's done, but I've seen him in a million things.
So many things. He was in Doctor Strange. He's one of the main bad.
Caecilius.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's in a million things. Ever since Casino Royale, you've seen him in. He's probably got good 50, 60 credits now.
And on Mubi had Valhalla Rising, I think, on it, and I don't know if it's still on there, but I really want to check that movie out too.
He's in a Western with Eva Green, Runaway.
Really?
Runaway, hard and fast.
Nice.
I watched all of it. It was depressing.
It's a Casino Royale reunion.
I don't remember what it was called, but it was, again, Eva Green, Mads Mikkelsen in a Western, Runaway.
Wow, that's odd because all of those are like right up your alley, right?
You would think. Well, that's why I watched it. It's terrible. Are we doing another round?
Yeah, let's do it,
another
baby.
one.
I'm actually going to talk about a movie I've already talked about in the past, but I think I gave it short shrift. And I will continue from this day forward to make fun of its bad title, and that's Only the Brave. Now, before when I brought it up, it was probably 6 months ago, maybe 4. I don't know. I was probably a little buzzed on wine when I watched it. I certainly wasn't paying full attention. And I think I probably ended up saying something like, it was okay. It was pretty good. Shitty title.
Yeah, the title's throwing me. What is this about
This
again?
is about firefighters. Actually, hot shots, where they basically contain forest fires by doing pre-burns. And so you've got Josh Brolin, who's just great in everything these days. And you have Jeff Bridges, and you have Miles Teller, and Taylor Kish, and Jennifer Connelly.
Wow.
Those are the names that you'll recognize the most. But basically, Miles Teller is a new guy who's just joined this group of firefighters that don't have certification, but are training and trying to get certification. Brolin is their leader. He took this kid, Miles Teller, under his wing because Miles Teller had a drug problem, and is just getting out of jail. And it's basically a series of fires. I actually thought for a second that Mark Wahlberg's best friend directed this. Peter Berg.
Oh, Peter Berg, yeah.
Because it feels like a Peter Berg movie in a lot of this. Because this is based on a true story. And this outfit gets certified early on, and then they fight a handful of real fires that are historical. And they save the town. There's a fire right near their town. And their town is right next to something called Granite Mountain. They call themselves the Granite Mountain Hotshots. And you can take Only the Brave as a title and throw it out the window and just call it the Granite Mountain Hotshots.
Where is this
Granite
like?
It's in Arizona.
Arizona.
And so, and then they go out for one last firefighting thing that is no big deal, and 2 or 3 things go wrong, and it's a super tragic ending. So be forewarned going in. But I really liked it this time around. I watched it during the afternoon. There was no wine involved, and I wasn't doing work while I was watching it. It kind of had my full attention. I was most struck by how much I like Brolin because he's really dialed it back. Like, really dialed it back.
Guy's just fucking good, man.
Is. He really is. And I really thought Miles Teller was good in this. Jennifer Connelly stole it from me because she's this angry wife who wants to have a baby, and he's always off fighting fires, maybe dying and leaving her alone. And she says something like, you give me 10% and you give fire 90%. Great fights between them. Anyway, I enjoyed it enough that I went, I'm going to look up the director. And I think it's time we start putting this guy in the discussion because it's Joseph Kosinski, who made Tron Legacy, Oblivion, and Only the Brave.
Ooh, I like I like those first 2.
And his next one, I don't remember. His next one is some kind of bigger budgety, might even be like a comic book thing. I'm not sure. I looked up his IMDb, but I was like, oh, I love Tron Legacy. I love Oblivion, and now I like this movie better.
He's doing the new Top Gun movie.
Oh, that's right.
Interesting.
And he's doing something called Spider Head, which I do not think has anything to do with Spider-Man.
Spider Heed.
It's probably not. Anyway,
Look at that boy's heed.
I ended up feeling like, even if last time I just kind of called it good, shitty title, that was maybe not giving it its due. It was much better the second time around. It looks phenomenal. Like it's shot very well. Anyway, there you go.
A recommend will be it's a classic movie, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Jacques Demy directed this. I believe, though, an episode of Mad Men even has this in the background at one point. It is an extremely colorful musical, like solid colors all the way throughout. You know, it definitely feels like La La Land took some notes. And it's a very basic story, but this is a musical where nobody ever has straight dialogue. Everybody's singing all the time. And it's a simple story. I mean, a woman, Catherine Deneuve, who's one of the most beautiful women of all time. Catherine Deneuve is dating this guy. They're very young. I guess there's a thing in France where you have to have military service for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think so.
So they're dating and they want to get married, but he has to do his military service first. So he goes off to war, and I think they're actually fighting like Algeria or something at this point in the 50s. And while he's overseas, she doesn't seem to be getting many letters from him or anything like that. And she starts to sort of like fall out of love with him. Meanwhile, there's this dude who's come into the picture that she and her mom run this umbrella shop. I don't know what I get. Maybe back in the 50s, you could run a whole shop based on umbrellas.
It's the
I don't know.
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, exactly. They're not doing well financially, of course.
Shocker.
Yeah. There's even a scene there where, like at the beginning, where the mom's like, show this man the umbrella or whatever, and you're like sitting there going, does he really need to like go through this like it's a VCR or something? But they're having trouble. But there's this one guy who comes in who says that he can help them out and everything. Meanwhile, he falls in love with her because everybody. I mean, if you're within 5-10 feet of Catherine Deneuve, you're going to end up falling in love with her. That's just the way it goes. It's a law. And so like she ends up just, almost sort of just giving up on the dude who's gone to war because she hadn't heard from him for a long time. So ends up marrying the other dude. Dude comes back, finds out that she was, this wasn't a big reveal, but I'm making it sound like one. She's pregnant while he's off. So they had like a one night before he left. That one night turned into a baby.
One Night in Paris.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. One Night in Paris.
That's right.
That's the name of Paris Hilton's sex
Yeah,
tape.
it's got very odd
Baby making.
very odd green cinematography in that movie. So yeah, she marries this dude, and he's like, this kid was going to be our kid, and all that. And then he ends up falling in love with a woman who was taking care of her aunt, I think, or whatever, his aunt. You sit there like, this is a movie that if it were remade today, it would definitely go a direction that you're expecting. Like, you're expecting, okay, well, something's going to happen to both of them where they get back together and all that. And I'm spoiling it, but it's one of those things you're expecting them to get back together the whole time, and that's not the point of that movie.
It's like broadcast news.
Yeah.
And the broadcast news is always hard for me to accept, even though it's not my art to dictate.
Well, and I know it's I mean, I don't think she ends up with either of those dudes.
She doesn't. They all end up on their own or with somebody else.
Yeah. It is funny though. The plot of this was familiar enough to me that I turned to the guy. We have this sort of movie club thing every month with some other friends of mine, and he's a very like big time classic movie guy and everything. And he's like, I turned to him and I said, I really like that. I like that almost as much as The Notebook. just to poke the bear, and because it has that the Notebook has that exact same story. It's not the musical, but the whole thing. We're in the rain where he's like, I wrote for you for 5 years. I wrote every day for 5 years.
Oh my god.
So anyway, highly recommend The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It's a really good movie.
All right.
Can we catch up with just like a couple of movies that we gave short shrift to in 2018 that I wanted to talk about?
Sure.
Just briefly. First one is Crazy Rich Asians, which is hard to say without calling it Crazians.
Oh yeah. Or
which are delicious on salad.
Or Crazy Stupid Asians is what I was thinking when I was watching it, because there's Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah. All right. I think we had very differing opinions on this because I really, really like this movie.
Okay.
And Chris, you don't feel the same way, correct?
No, I like it. I just feel like this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, point blank ridiculous. But it doesn't feel like a different culture that I'm watching when I'm watching this movie, because it's got all the same romantic comedy cliches I've seen in every movie before this. There are a couple of moments where I think I am being transported into a different world. There's the wedding scene.
Yeah, that's a great
It's
scene.
a great scene.
Yeah.
And there's the mahjong scene. Yeah, I like this movie. I just think it's too much like every other movie I've ever seen.
Well, it's derivative. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's derivative of 50 Shades of Grey. It's derivative of romantic comedies where mom and girl don't get along and all that stuff. Monster-in-law, shit like that,
50
right?
Shades of Grey? How crazy are these rich Asians?
They do have a lot of sex.
Do they?
No, I mean, it's the crazy rich part where like the guy is...
I see.
They're able to do
Lifestyle.
anything, correct. And it's almost like if you were to show me a Asian version of a rom-com or something like that, it's almost like they had to set it in this super ultra rich society for us to relate to. You know what I mean? And it is fun to look at. It is really, really, relatable, because a lot of the characters like Ken Jeong and Awkwafina and even the guy who's on Superstore that I always forget his name.
Oh yeah,
they're all speaking with American dialects. So there is a lot, and so is Constance Wu. So there's a lot to relate to as an American. And of course, the main guy, Nick, is like Chinese British, and he's good looking. Let me tell you something.
He's in A Simple Favor.
That is him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's also very good in that. I like that guy.
Rich Asians.
Yeah. So I think this is a recommend. I understand exactly what Chris is saying. We send this as of today. It came out, and I agree with all the sins that were in there. I I think it may have even suggested one in there, but like I still had a really good time. The other one that I think I have a very different opinion of from Jeremy is I finally did see Tully.
You loved it.
I fucking loved it.
Everybody loves Tully but me.
I agree, again, with what you're saying, though. Spot the twist a mile away, and that it was marketed to say, oh, there's a twist coming.
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
You haven't seen it?
No.
If you had
So I'll leave out the twist.
If you had marketed this as a world-weary pregnancy mom drama.
Momdra. Mama.
Yeah, you really can't. That's about the best way you can combine those words, right?
Mama and drama combined.
Mom
Baby
drum.
mama drama?
Mom drum.
Baby mama drama too much for me to want to stay in one spot.
Yes, I agree. I wish they had done that because there's a lot. Okay, so first of all, what grabbed me about this was how realistic it gets parenting.
In the beginning?
All the way through.
Yeah.
All the way through. And not just the moment where, like, you know, she gets super frustrated and all that stuff and things are just building up and building up. It's the little things, like kicking the back of the seat constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Their son has what I think is something like sensory processing disorder where they have to brush him down every day.
Mm-hmm.
On the autism spectrum, basically. But nobody wants to say that in this movie. She's just had a new baby. Her daughter is going through like early tween, pre-adolescence, that kind of thing. And all that shit, because I've been through, my kid is now 11, so I've been up to that span of ages that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets it so right. And the other thing that really got me was Diablo Cody, man. Because she wrote this screenplay, and it's got a lot of like a grown-up version of Juno.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think it's weird hearing something that Ellen Page would say, 10 years ago, whatever that was, in Charlize Theron's mouth, Theron or whatever it is, in her mouth now. And I think it's perfect. I think she delivers it perfectly. I think it's whip smart. Mackenzie Davis is also really whip smart.
She's a manic pixie midwife. Right?
Yeah. She is the definition of manic pixie midwife.
She's great. She's the best thing about them. Her and Ron Livingston stood out to me. I thought Charlize was great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just hard for me when I see something coming that far away to let myself get immersed.
Yeah.
And I think I'll go back to it at some point and probably like it more. And I didn't hate it, but even the podcast where I talked about it, most of the commenters who brought it up were disagreeing with me. They were like, "Oh, I loved it.
Oh, really?
I saw the twist coming and I loved it." I think I am really in like the outlier on this movie for some reason.
I think between the dialogue, the direction, the family dynamics, your boy, Duplass, Mark Duplass is in this. And he's super successful, super rich. And he's introduced as being this out of touch asshole, right? But once you see it from his perspective, it's like Ron Livingston says, you know, your brother hates me. And she's like, well, he doesn't hate, yeah, I guess he kind of hates you. And then they show them at dinner and all that stuff. But he's like he's reaching out, he's being kind. And later on in the movie, there's a scene where it's him and his wife, and he's like, man, her husband hates me. And it's such a realistic depiction of like these family dynamics. I loved it. I couldn't recommend it more, but I totally understand what you mean.
There's this, where is it? There's a waitress at one of the places my wife and I go a lot. And whenever we get her, I swear to God, she doesn't like me. I don't have any reason to think that. But I like the idea of after we leave, she's always going to a coworker going, man, that guy hates me.
There's also, this couple is so super rich and everything that they get their kids into all the best schools. And she's telling Charlize there, and she's saying, you know, my kid is in a talent show. We've got to go. And she's like, oh, what is her talent? And she's like, Pilates. And there's this beat where like, what are you gonna say? It's very good. There's some very funny shit in there. Do you want to do some creation?
Let's do Q2.
Question.
I got something to say. I want the truth. I am listening.
One of my favorite moments in the entire history of the podcast was when Barrett was reflecting on Sharon Stone's description of what a psychologist is in Basic Instinct. This is where I have a degree in psychology. It comes with the territory for fucking people. Fuck that.
Yeah.
And I said, fuck you, and he fell out laughing. That's nice. What movies come to mind that give truly terrible representations of professions you are familiar with which you're familiar?
Nice. You saved that.
Okay, so my only main job before this was working in movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I worked one other job than that. And maybe one other job other than that. But like those two jobs, like, you know, there's nothing about. I delivered newspapers at one point. There's no movies about that.
There's Better Off Dead.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't throwing it out of my car or anything like that. I was just going to racks and putting papers in. And I've never once been like, oh, that's just the stupidest way to put papers in. So there's not very many movies about movie theater life either. The most famous one is probably Cinema Paradiso. I think they get the projection pretty much right in that. Although also those projectors are from way before my time.
Right.
So some of the stuff in there, like there's a point where the main guy can tell that the movie's out of focus by hearing the projector.
Wow.
And I'm like, I guess you could know that, but you know, I don't. I never had that experience. The only thing that I think is total bullshit is there's a scene in Cinema Paradiso where he gets a little mirror and he's able to project. There's a scene where movie sold out and there's a ton of people outside who still want to see the movie, and they've been shut out of it and everything. I think there's almost a riot about to go on. So he takes this little mirror and reflects the image out onto a building outside. Now, I think the reflection part, you could probably do that, but not in the way that they should. This is just more movie magic type of thing that's just fun. So there's nothing about the way that he runs projectors that I'm like, you know, whatever. So I'm not, I have to basically go down to something that I'm not familiar with, but I hate in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Cops who go into apartments and they just always seem to be not paying attention. They're like always pointing in one direction.
Yeah.
And they're just like looking in one direction the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's, of course, the bad guy is right there. Like, how many times has this happened to cops that they go into an apartment building and they just get completely blindsided by some asshole?
No, I agree. The craziest thing was, I think it was True Detective, the final episode of season 1. Mm-hmm. He clears the room and it's a tracking shot and all that stuff. There's two of them, actually. There's one where he's getting the guy out of the projects, that wonderful tracking shot, where he clears every room, like left, right, up, down, like everywhere, under beds and shit like that. And he does it again in that. And it stood out to me because of what you're saying, because it never happens. There's always a fucking guy right over there.
Yeah.
In The Fugitive, I got you, man.
Yeah. I just feel like, while yes, I'm sure that there are some inexperienced cops that run into an apartment and they've forgotten all of their training. I'm sure that happens. But like I see it with like 25-year vets on the force, people who are about to retire, go in looking in one direction the whole time, and they may look in other directions too. But like, I'm sitting there going, that is not how anybody looks. And like, I would be more aware going into my own house, knowing there's nobody in there, than they are when they're going in there knowing somebody's in it. So that's something that's always bugged me. It's not a thing I'm familiar with, though. It could happen all the time for all I know.
I don't know, man. I've noticed that too. That bugs me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get bugged. There are 3 things I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to hog the next several minutes.
Do it.
I can tell when a movie that has a main character that is a preacher or a preacher's kid consulted somebody who was a preacher or a preacher's kid, and when they didn't. Every single time I can tell.
Really?
When Hollywood wants to pretend they know what a preacher's family is like or what church is like when they have never set foot in one, I can always tell. It's very funny to me. Now, that's probably only because I have churched as much as anyone has ever churched in the first half of my life. The other one I thought of, and I emailed you guys, was piano playing. I can always spot the fakes, and that's why Ryan Gosling was so awesome in La La Land, is that he really learned how to play that piece.
How much? Isn't there's some where he's not, right?
The piece he plays in the restaurant that she first hears that gets him fired, he learned how to play that.
He knew all of that. That's all him?
Yes.
Holy shit.
That's my understanding.
I knew
to
that
the
he
point where
learned.
Damien Chazelle was blown away.
Wow.
And usually you get the Bill Murray in Groundhog Day where we just shoot you from the other side of the piano and we don't have to see what your hands are doing. The funniest ones are when they try and fake it, but nobody actually knows how to play. So they try and get a hand shot in there and they're never fucking playing the right notes. They're always like 3 octaves away from the notes that are being played at the moment. And the other one I want to talk about is golf swing, because a lot of movies will cast handsome actor A who doesn't know shit about golf. And he's hilarious in the golf scene when he tries to, like, Entourage always did this too, because those guys were always swinging golf clubs, and in real life, none of those fuckers had ever swung a golf club. But my favorite is Sideways, because that's realistic.
Yes.
Because the way those two guys swing is exactly like a hacking duffer who's played before but sucks would swing a golf club.
Yep.
Anyway, there's my answer.
But you bring up something that I just realized. I can always tell baseball swings that should not produce home runs. Like every time,
or even contact.
Yeah,
Short ass swing.
I think Wesley Snipes. He's been in Major League and The Fan, and I don't think either time he swung the bat in a way that makes any sense. Major League kinda, because he's kind of a slap hitter, and he can occasionally hit a home run, but they tell him don't ever do that again. But I think it's in The Fan for sure, where you're just like, this guy's supposed to be a superstar, really? I think even in a movie that I love, The Natural, I mean, Redford has a pretty good swing in that, but some of the ones that they show, there's the one scene that's all in one. It's a slow motion shot of him hitting one home run.
Yeah,
but it's the broadcaster is talking about. You can hear the first one he hit, the second one he hit, the third one he hit, and this one is the fourth one. This big slow motion shot, and the one that he hits on that shot, that's a pop up.
Yeah.
But they see the catcher and he rises up and like all that. Redford's looking out in the distance, and I'm like, yeah, that ball's like above your head.
The second baseman catches that thing.
Yeah.
You know who's got a good golf swing, and I love this scene. Total has to be service to Bill Murray himself, is that scene in Lost in Translation.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a long take. He gets right up on it, puts the ball down, takes the 3-wood out, takes a step back, looks over. It's this beautiful shot of Mount Fuji in the background, and he gets up to the ball, a couple of waggles, and has this wonderfully languid shot, because, he plays in real life.
Right, he does.
And goes right down the middle, same ball flight that a 3-wood have, and he just puts the only thing is he doesn't have any other clubs with him. He's just rambling around with the 3-wood, but it's a beautiful shot.
It is. Well, and you just watch Kevin Costner and Don Johnson swing in Tin Cup at back-to-back, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because Costner plays golf all the time, and it shows, and Don Johnson learned how to swing a golf club for this movie.
All right, so automotive stuff. I was a mechanic for off and on at my grandfather's shop since I was like 6 to 20 or something like that. And I wasn't very good at it. My first solo gig, I had to replace some spark plugs and had a comeback. The guy brought it back in like 2 hours.
Nice.
So I had to redo it. It was a good life lesson. Yeah, I learned how to do like a tune-up and plug gapping and stuff like that. But I wasn't very good at it. I could never do like the high-level stuff or anything like that. But I could get you going. Like we broke down in Alabama on a trip recently, and I was able to get us in enough shape to get to the mechanics. But I also had some tools available at my disposal. What I hate in movies is when you get these motherfuckers that get in there and like with their bare hands twist a couple of fucking things.
Oh yeah.
And try it now.
Yeah.
This happened most recently. I was watching 8 Mile, and motherfucker, so Mekhi Phifer pulls up to his house and everything, and Eminem, or B Rabbit, who is a factory worker, somehow knows how, because he lives in
metal
Detroit.
stamper.
Yeah, exactly. He gets in there. They're talking about the rap battles, and you gotta come and we're gonna make it and all that stuff. He's in there like his car won't run, but he's twisting shit around there with his bare fucking hands. And then he's like, he does the try it now. And Mekhi Phifer, he pulled it, turns over, doesn't catch. He's like, oh. And then he does something else. He's like, give it some gas. He gives it some gas, and it starts up. And it's like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah.
I love that scene, though. Live at home in a trailer.
That's also where Michael Shannon comes out and he's like, "You got a cigarette?"
Michael Shannon almost steals that movie. Oh, man.
Kevin Kai Fiver's like, "What the fuck's wrong with him?" He's like, "He's not right in the head."
He had like a car accident or something?
Yeah,
I think
something
so, yeah.
like. Do we want to do one more?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do one more. This is from a guy that's living in Italy right now, and very, very cool. I'm glad to see our net being cast, our seed being spread.
That's right. That's right. Doesn't he say something in the question about seeds? I think he does. I think it's in direct reference to spreading our seed, right?
What the point of this message is that he was watching First Man, and it reminded him of a certain subcategory of space movies that do it very realistically. Things like Apollo 13, Hidden Figures, things like that. First Man. Which I think is a very cool thing. So the question is, and he puts it kind of maybe Italian-wise, the question is, what are your favorite movies about a certain argument? Mine was space in a realistic way. What I think he's meaning is that something that is very specifically presented in the movie itself.
Okay. Well, then, I don't know if that's what my answer that I came up with. It just felt like after a while that this felt like a what kind of movie do you like? What kind of subgenre do you like? Is almost what it sounds like. But he takes a really good one. That's probably my favorite stuff going on right now. Are directors and writers who come out and say, we want to do something that's real with the science and everything. But I found that I really like horror comedies a lot.
Yeah.
I like them even when they're horrible. Like, they're not very good at all. Like, I'll watch anything, but we had the Modern Horrors guys come in and talk about Deathgasm.
Love that movie.
That movie is great. Dave Made a Maze is really fun. I saw I didn't realize this movie existed until it just came on cable the other day. It's called Student Bodies, and it came out in 1981.
Yeah.
It is a parody of horror movies up to that point, which, at this point you've got Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got probably a host of other, stuff that we would see in the 80s later on. But it's very airplane-y type of comedy, and I thought I had known about all of these movies.
Yeah.
I did not realize that they had made one of these. This movie's awful, but I sat there with I really kind of just dig what this movie's about, and it's stupid, but there's a point where someone forgets to lock a door. And then this big arrow comes up on the screen and blinks and says, "Bad idea." And it's just this, I think it's this killer that's going around, killing all these, girls from the school or whatever. And they have to, whoever the main person is has to figure out who it is. But it's that kind of silliness all the way through. Mm-hmm. The killings are silly. All the stuff is silly. So I ended up, I haven't seen the whole thing, but just parts of it. I was like, I may have to watch this sometime. So yeah, I found myself being drawn to these horror comedies.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Evil Dead?
Yeah, Evil Dead. Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, I was thinking more about investigative journalism movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good.
Because it seems to be a genre that's coming back. With Spotlight and The Post, and Zodiac is another excellent.
Oh yeah.
Of course, you go back to All the President's Men. You got season 5 of The Wire. I'm a sucker for realistic investigative journalism. All of the movies and the TV show I just mentioned show how long form that shit is, right? I think it's very easy for us to sit back and read an expose about the Catholic Church and the sex scandal and maybe not even look at the names of the people who wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
But those people probably spent a year or more on that story. That Bryan Singer story that Esquire wouldn't publish, that the Atlantic ended up publishing, that was a year plus in the making of investigating. That's how the Spotlight would be my favorite, by the way, of all of these.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Zodiac would be my favorite of all those movies, pure movie-wise, but that's only because the investigative journalism is just part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in Spotlight, these people are on this story for so long, and this one specific crew of the Boston Globe, that's their deal.
Mm-hmm.
They work on stories that are so big and important, they work on them for 10 months, a year and a half. They gestate. And I love that scene when Mark Ruffalo just explodes when Michael Keaton says it's not time, we're not ready to do it yet, because he's been living with this.
Yeah.
He's been steeped in this, and he just lets it all out. He's like, they're with little kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't stop watching Spotlight. I've probably seen it a dozen times in the last 2 or 3 months, ever since it started showing up on Cinemax or Showtime.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm going to have to go down that
Everyone's so
rabbit hole,
good in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that guy from The Wire who directed it, Tom Hopper.
Yeah, McCarthy?
Tom McCarthy.
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
McCarthy.
Yeah.
And he clearly understands journalism and how it works, but he doesn't. The camera never gets in the way in Spotlight. It feels almost documentary-like.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my favorite of all the investigative journalism movies. Spotlight.
That's good.
Good stuff. It's hard to watch.
Imagine the stuff that we're going to see come out about the Mueller stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like the background, because you know how much work has gone into this. How much, and who knows when we're going to get the report? You know, it may be tomorrow, it may be 6 months.
We're
from
gonna
now.
we're gonna get some excellent movies. I have a feeling.
Yeah, well,
Which I
hopefully
wish they didn't have to exist, but
well, hopefully it has a happy ending.
yeah,
I just hope they
Or a
wait.
satisfying ending. All the President's Men has a satisfying
yeah.
ending.
All the
Spotlight has a satisfying
Yes.
ending.
thing about too All the President's Men. They did that movie like right after it happened.
Right.
Like, because the book had been written, obviously, so they had the source material. But good God, to think of what they pulled off in just 2 years after it had happened.
Well, and we forget. I saw a picture the other day posted on Twitter of Woodward and Bernstein watching Nixon's resignation speech. And the caption that came along with the tweet was basically like Nixon and his administration had just trashed them for months and months. Very similar to kind of what you're seeing a little bit of today in terms of like calling their investigation a hit job. And they just had to deal with all of that and keep their head down. And you just you got to respect people that can put in that effort, man, because I'm much too short-term a reward needer to be an investigative journalist. I mean, I need something
Most
back,
people are.
like soon.
Yeah.
Anyway, Spotlight. There you
Nice. So it's a weird thing. I read this question after I had watched Polar, and I was thinking about movies. I gravitate to movies that, what I say, declare themselves very early what they're going to be. This movie Polar is very much like that by the way that they introduce their characters with the graphical flourishes, with a few different things, but the color palette and stuff like that, and it was consistent all the way through, as opposed to something like Suicide Squad that tries to declare something and it's a completely different movie afterwards. Also thought about La La Land being this way, where it comes out and it's the opening musical on the highway. This is not set in reality, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Another Day of Sun. It's a realistic based musical. And that's what gets me hard. Like, that's what
Barrett is making a fist with his arm rigid.
But something like Mean Girls declares itself very early what it's going to be, subversive and comedic and stuff like that. It's not going to be your typical thing, and I am on board with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't mind you doing something completely different, like La La Land, like Polar, like Mean Girls. But be consistent. Follow up on that, because you've got my attention. Let's make this work. And it's not very many movies that do that. So that's my.
Can I give a shout out before we wrap it up? Our buddies Modern Horrors are trying to make a movie. They have a Seed and Spark page. The movie's going to be called God Country. They're trying to raise a very reasonable sum of money. And I don't even really like horror, much less like the really hard stuff. But these guys do. And their enthusiasm for it is fucking contagious. And I want to see them get to make this movie. And I want to see this movie. It's going to be violent and gory and touch on some questionable topics. These guys are insane. But I've already donated, and I would like to rally some CinemaSins fans out there to come and donate as well. They're going to shoot this thing locally here around in Nashville. I've already asked if I can come on set, and they said yes.
Oh, cool.
I asked for like a speaking role. I wasn't shy. But Anyway, check it out if you like horror, if you like indie horror, if you have enjoyed Modern Horror's appearance on our podcast. This is a chance to support them. Every few dollars helps. And they got about a month left on their campaign. And I just wanted to shout that out to our pod friends.
Good looking out.
Trying to find a link to this.
The best way I would know to tell you to get there is go to Modern Horror's Twitter page, and they probably have a recent or sticky tweet that has a link to it. But that's how I always find it.
I just Googled Modern Horror Seed and Spark. They're 15% to their goal, and you can go donate right there. It says you make a pledge. That's how I
And they
do it,
have
too.
some cool rewards, too. Like, if you donate at a certain level, they're going to give away... Let's just say this movie apparently has razor blade Bibles, and they're going to give away some of those to people who donated a certain level. I don't know. I grew up a preacher's kid. I never saw a razor blade Bible. Kind of scares me to even think about it. But I know what they spent on the teaser video that's on that campaign page, and they can stretch $1, kids. And
It's so
they're going
cool.
to take this money and do something really, really unique, and I can't wait.
Good job.
Yes. That you said 15%, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, 15% to their goal, and I'm planning on donating that to as well. But God Country,
God Country.
Unit
Unit Core God Country.
yeah, yes, code.
God, the tier names are hilarious, by the way.
They are.
Blasphemer. Let me just read these real quick. Non-believer is the first one. Apostate. Heretic is the next one. $50 gets you blasphemer level. $70 is infidel. $100 is idolatrous. That's funny. $200 is godless. $500 is recreant. Oh, and then $1,000 is associate producer. $5,000 is producer. $10,000 is executive producer.
Executive producer is right there for the taking.
Yes.
Yep. That'll do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by CinemaSins on Facebook and give yourself some comments. Give me some comments, not
right,
yourself. Give me some comments, and I will give yourself some comments back. Go to CinemaSins Twitter. Go to Reddit. Go to we've got a Patreon. We've also got Discord. A few people were disappointed we weren't on Discord on the night of the Oscars. I would have been, but my phone was like down to nothing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't have any chance to charge it. So I felt bad about that. But anyway, I'm hanging around on Discord, answer some questions here and there. But tell us what you thought about this very episode. But that'll do it for this one. We'd like to thank Greg Sestero again.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
Caught shoplifting the game, and then Marge takes him right back there for a picture, and
Oh yeah.
she finds out he's a shoplifter, and that's a great little episode.
Is the game Bone something?
Bone Storm.
Bone Storm.
Yeah, he gets at Millhouse.
Bone Storm?
Hey, how come you aren't playing Bone Storm anymore? It got boring. I'm really into this cup and ball now.
I am Barrett, the guy who's been conversing with you. And I'm about to turn you around to my much better looking colleagues,
Yeah.
Chris Atkinson and Jeremy Scott, the creators of YouTube. So I'm going to have you on a little bit of an angle.
We are the creators of YouTube.
The creators of YouTube. That's I didn't realize I said that.
There is a funny moment in The Disaster Artist where Dave Franco is on the couch with Alison Brie and they're watching Gilmore Girls, and she's like, you're so much better looking than that guy on that show or whatever. You can do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. What would have been better, Gilmore Girls or The Room?
oh man,
That's a tough one.
it is a tough one. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're probably
You gotta think like 50 years from now.
yeah, because
Still,
I don't know. There's not very many dudes off that show who you could just name right off the bat.
Just Milo Ventimiglia.
Ventimiglia.
Supernatural kids on there too.
Oh yeah, was it Johnny Gadecki or not? Not Johnny Gadecki, but he's got a name like that.
Johnny Gadecki. It's Padlecki.
Padlecki. Yeah.
Yeah. So the pre-order package is going to be the comic book, and then there's art from. They're adding sketches inside the book that are like of some of the scenes, and they'll get like digital copies of that art, and then
hold on. They're adding art from the comic book into the book?
No, what we decided was that, you know how some books will have illustrations here and there? So we've got 4 of those in each book, and they're storyboard style black and white sketches.
Did Jeremy do them?
No, because he was too busy. The gal that did the covers did them.
Callie?
Yeah, she's great.
She's awesome. I follow her on Twitter now.
She's got... I think she may just be earlier in her career because her art is so good. It feels like she said mine was the first book cover she'd ever designed.
Yeah, that's insane.
It is insane.
She did strings too, right?
Yeah, she did both of them. She's going to do all of them.
Like I don't think Green Book should win Best Picture ever. But I liked the movie, so I'm in this weird position because people who are the backlash against that movie is all the. Well, a bunch of white people made it, and Peter Farrelly showed his dick to people, and they didn't get the family right. And
if you like it, you're hereby endorsing all that stuff. Right?
You are suddenly, and people were coming up with stuff like they were doing I guess the backwards compliments that you would always hear white people say about black people, like. Green Book is so articulate. Green Book is, all these different things.
My favorite one I saw said some of Green Book's best friends are black movies.
Yeah, I saw that too. And so now that's become part of the narrative. Now I'm like sitting there going, I don't know if I can even say I like this movie anymore.
Yeah, you're kind of in an awkward position.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people eloquently say, yes, I liked it. I think even like the Maltons. And I think even Aaron said he enjoyed it, but he had the same caveats as you did.
Somebody on Facebook said, "I don't think the movie is necessarily about winning over racism. It's more about people are never who you think they are when you first meet them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, take the racism part out of their friendship, then that's what that movie is about.
Mm-hmm.
But."
I do, honestly, God, the biggest problem I have with it is the Peter Farrelly dick showing thing. I actually was rabbit holing on that last night just to make sure I didn't have my facts wrong. Rabbit holing sounds dirty. He literally said in the interview he's done it 500 times or more.
What is he doing? He's taking his dick out and he's just for comedic effect?
Yes. Well, he tries to defend himself. It's not like I just take out my dick and say, look at my dick. But then he goes on to describe what he does. I emailed it to myself in case we got into this because that's literally what he does.
Because Glenn Close was definitely winning.
Yeah.
She was definitely winning. And when they said Olivia Colman and like she can't like all that emotion and everything.
Yeah.
Emma Stone and everybody like gathered around her and she got up there and just her saying, it's like, this is hilarious. I've won an Oscar. It was just, I really, really enjoyed that. So no, I didn't like the telecast in general though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some moments in there, like the opening Maya Rudolph, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. I like the Melissa McCarthy thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would prefer a host. I'd prefer a host that's bombing than no host at all.
How'd you like how'd you like Shallow?
Oh yeah.
Were they performing in character?
He wasn't. I don't know if either of them were.
Wink did fuck my girl. I'm still standing here saying fuck the free world. I love that movie.
It's actually been a decent while since I've seen it all the way through. Like I've seen spots of it, but it's kind of cool to rewatch it.
It doesn't all work perfectly.
No.
But the last 30 minutes is so perfect.
And it's really well shot. It's Curtis
Hanson, baby.
Hanson, right? Yeah.
He's a little bit of a Danny Boyle in terms of like genre hopping because he did LA Confidential.
And he died,
and
right?
he did Wonder Boys. He did die. And then he did this.
Oh, you want to hear my hot take on Danny Boyle?
You got a hot take on Danny Boyle?
I surprisingly do.
Okay.
Watching a little of 28 Days Later. Loved that movie.
He made that movie?
Yep.
All right.
Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris zombie movie.
Well, they all run together for me. I don't know if that's the one with Ving Rhames in the mall and Sarah.
No, that's Dawn of the Dead.
That's Dawn of the Dead.
No, he did 28 Days Later where they're infected. They're fast zombies. It's the one where he wakes up.
Rose Byrne is in 28 Weeks Later.
Yes.
Okay. I have seen this.
Yeah. All the problems that I had with Slumdog Millionaire, with all the super Dutch angles and the hyper-edited shit and all that stuff, came up when I was watching 28 Days Later, which I really, really liked
but it's
at
not
the time.
every film. You're right. But if you watch something like Millions...
No, yeah, absolutely. The Beach, though, is kind of like this.
What's the space one with the sunshine?
Sunshine.
I don't feel like they have a lot of hyper-edited...
No.
He's just so fucking
Trainspotting.
diverse, man. I'm fascinated by this guy. Like, what draws him to a project?
I don't know.
Because now he's doing... No, he's off Bond. Is he doing Bond? Or was it announced and then unannounced?
What was the deal with that?
I feel like he was announced as doing the next Bond.
Yeah, I think he's off of it because I think I heard he was on it and then he was off.
Well, he's one we should eventually do the rundown on because he's got some misfires. And he's
fucking
got some...
Steve Jobs? I kind of like Steve Jobs.
Actually, see, that again, I don't know that that's a great movie, but
No.
I fucking love watching it.
I do too.
I've
And
seen it a million times.
he's so good. Fassbender is so good.
Mhm.
And that's more of a Sorkin movie than than a Danny Boyle.
Well, and it came out, like Fincher was attached to that at one point.
Mhm.
And that was part of the whole Sony hack email thing came out, and some of that was leaked. But it went to Danny Boyle.
Kerry Joji Fukunaga is the director of the Bond 25.
Ooh, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Could be excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the guy that shot and directed season 1 of True Detective.
True Detective and Maniac.
I have forgotten more about Spectre
Me too.
than maybe any movie in the last 10 years.
It's a completely forgettable movie.
It's just poof.
Yep.
That dude from Inglourious Bastards is in it. That's
Yeah.
about all I remember. I sinned that whole movie.
Oh, you even sinned it? You don't
I'm pretty
remember
sure I
anything?
sinned it. I know I watched it.
Yeah, I watched it and sent it. I can tell you some things about it. Like she's in it. And Batista's in it.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Because he's playing the famous Bond henchman.
Yeah, like the
Not Odd Job.
No, it is Odd
it's
Job.
Odd Job.
He's playing Odd Job?
Yeah.
God, I
think
have
so.
forgotten a lot about this movie.
I'm telling you, man.
Meanwhile, you can recite Space Cowboys plot.
I can do Office Christmas Party. MacGruber. Horrible Bosses 2.
According to this, though, Dave Bautista is playing somebody named Hinks, but he does look like a lot like the Odd Job type
I
character.
thought for sure he was Odd Job. Okay.
I got an Odd Job last night.
I did too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we were at the same place.
Well, it was odd.
Were you at Orchids of Asia?
Yeah, that's right, baby.
The morning of and the night after.
Yes.
Like twice within 24 hours, that dude was there.
Listen, if you're within a mile radius,
I'm not
Yeah.
judging. I think we should reduce and relax the hand job laws in this country.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't have much of a problem with any of that, although
If there's no traffic,
that's what
right?
I'm saying. The human
Yeah.
trafficking part of it is the part that's worse.
See, I just forgot all about that part of the
Well,
story.
you're right, and you're right. We're all right because it's perfectly encapsulated in that show Easy that I was telling you about on Netflix, where they have an open marriage. It's the girl from Haunting of Hill House and some other dude. And one of his friends says, "Hey, this is the first night that you can go cheat." And so he tries to kind of flirt with his coworker, and he's like, "Nah, I just wanted this to be random." So he goes to a rub and tug, and she like massages him for a little bit, and she's like, "Now's the time where you roll over and I give you a hand job." And he was like, "Oh, okay. I mean, do I have to pay extra?" She's like, "You give me $50 and I give you a hand job." And it was very businesslike. It's not like she's romancing him or anything like that. She's just like,
I don't think that would do it for me. I gotta say,
they're proficient apparently.
my brain and my penis are way too connected for that to ever work for me.
What?
I feel like
I will specify
If
that
I
I
was-
would tell you if I had done this before. I have never done this.
I have never done this before either. I would not tell you if I had. If I were in a sensory deprivation chamber and something just started rubbing my dick, I'm not sure I would ever get off from that.
I think they have ways.
My point is, for me, my brain has to be attached to the process in some capacity,
Really?
and I don't think it could be. Yeah, I want to. Yeah. Don't you want the person giving you a hand job to want to give you a hand job?
Yes.
Doesn't that improve the hand job
But
experience?
they get the $50, so that makes them want to give the hand job.
I don't think it does.
I mean, I think it's a necessary.
I'm actually
process.
trying to. Like, I'm amazed that that guys are able to get off in that situation.
Oh, yeah?
It doesn't make any sense to me. My penis doesn't work that way.
I know a lot of dudes that I used to hang around with that it was just a regular thing. It was like, I went to get my hair cut, went to the rub and tug, went to, the dentist or whatever.
It's like the older brother on Entourage. He went to a rub and tug, remember?
Johnny Drama?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
The scene that makes me laugh with Johnny Drama, the thing that I always remember the most, whatever, is that one where Turtle has the offer to have sex with the furry, and he can't do it. He just can't bring himself to do it. And then you see Kevin Dillon like pick up the Turtle's costume, and Turtle's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm gonna go get some pussy."
He doesn't care, man. He will fuck anything.
And this is like the last scene of that episode is him in that furry outfit with the girl bent over in front of him. He's just like slapping her on the ass.